أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Gelin bakıyor. Sen bakıversene.
الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. As you see, I have an assistant today. As you know, I'm working on gathering all the evidence and the proofs that show that if you go to any source other than Quran, it means you're setting up another God besides God. And the book is evolving and changing, and they keep showing you the slides as the book evolves. And then I expect to have it printed, inshallah, in a couple of months. But if you bear with me, some of these slides may be repetitious as far as you're concerned. But this will help me because I do get comments on correcting this or changing that. And inshallah, this will lead to perfection of the book. But before we get to the slides, I'm going to read one verse in Surah 9. Because a lot of people sometimes are concerned about the feelings of others. Like if you meet somebody who believes in Hadith, for example, and you worry that you may hurt their feelings, this verse deals with that. Because when it comes to the truth, especially about God, God wants people to be completely sold on Him without no hesitation whatsoever. So the verses in Surah 9, it's number 120. And it reads, I'm going to read it for you. Neither the dwellers of the city nor the nomads should seek to stay behind the messenger of God when he mobilizes for war, nor should they place their lives ahead of his life. This is because, this is really what I wanted to read for you, this part of the verse. No thirst afflicts them, or any effort, or any hardship in the cause of God, nor do they make a single step that discourages the disbelievers, nor do they strike an enemy without having this credited to them as a righteous work. God never fails to reward the righteous. Okay, let me put it in plain English. I can see that I have to improve the translation, but part of this verse says they do not do anything that enrages the disbelievers without having this written to them as a credit. So don't worry about the feelings of people who are not completely sold on God. And a lot of people who compromise their own convictions just to please others or afraid that they may hurt the feelings of others. Actually, you're not hurting their feelings, you are serving them, you're helping them. And now, we shouldn't forget the verse that says you should invite to the path of God with wisdom and nice admonitions. But the Quran deals with all situations. There are situations where you cannot compromise your convictions, and you have to be solid on the side of God. And you don't worry about if the person deserves to be enraged, then this will be written to you as a credit. Could we separate these two? If you keep them apart, they will not make noise. Okay, now we get to the slides, and this is the latest edition of the book, and I'm going to rely on your opinions and help to modify this. Will you turn it on, Edith? Just push the switch. This is the new title. Quran times, our titles are becoming mathematical now. Quran times Hadith equals 0. Because if you get the Quran and you uphold it and you follow it, but then you seek any other source besides Quran, then you have 0. You have nothing. Also, when you multiply anything by 0, the result is 0. Now, there is no salvation without obeying the messenger, and these are the verses. So, when they tell you we must obey the messenger, you agree with them, and you go even farther than they. You say, yeah, you must obey the messenger. Furthermore, you do not obey the messenger. These are the verses, and we're going to have it printed for you someday. When delivering God's messages, messengers do not speak on their own initiative. And we see this documented in the previous scriptures in the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament. And the Prophet Muhammad is represented by Quran alone. These verses here from Surah 5, verses 48 to 50, repeat. These verses keep repeating that, oh, my assistant has given up. We keep repeating that we revealed to you, we sent down to you this book, and you shall, that is the Quran, and you shall judge among them according to what is revealed to you, which is the book, and be aware of them lest they pressure you into deviating from the book, etc., etc. So the Prophet is represented 100% by the Quran. Now these verses are very clear. Muhammad forbidden from uttering any religious instructions other than Quran. See this part here? Had he ever uttered, let me go to the back. This Quran is the utterance of an honorable messenger. It is not the utterance of a poet, rarely do you believe, nor is it the utterance of a soothsayer, rarely do you take heed. A revelation from the Lord of the universe. This is an expression that is specific for the Quran. Tanzilun min Rabbil Alameen. Had he ever uttered any other religious utterances attributed to us, we would have punished him severely. Then we would have stopped the revelation to him. In other words, would have fired him. None of you would have protected him against us. Therefore, the Prophet did not utter any religious instructions other than Quran. Otherwise, he would have been fired as a messenger. Just very clear. Very harsh, actually, not just clear. Also, this is the utterance of an honorable messenger. Some people will tell you, the Quran says, obey God and obey the messenger. And they tell you, God represented by Quran and the messenger represented by Hadith. But we didn't get Quran from God personally. God didn't give us the Quran direct to me or to you. The Quran came through Muhammad. So the messenger is uttering the words of the Quran, the words of God. And there is a verse that you will see that says, when you obey the messenger, you're obeying God. Obviously, the messenger is not God, but when he's uttering the words of God, that is the Quran, then he absolutely makes no mistake, and we must absolutely obey him. That is the Quran. Muhammad ordered never to deviate from Quran. Deviation meant severe retribution. This is in Surah 17, verses 73 to 75. And it says here, they almost diverted you, Muhammad, from our revelations to you. They wanted you to fabricate something else, to consider you a friend. If it were not that we strengthened you, you almost lean towards them a little bit. In Arabic, shay'an qalila, a little bit. Had you done it, we would have doubled the punishment for you in this life and after death, and no one could have protected you against us. Very, very harsh words. There's absolutely no deviation from Quran. And Muhammad ordered to deliver Quran alone, without the least alteration, and never to fabricate anything else. These verses speak of the Quran specifically. It says, when our verses are recited for them, those who do not expect to meet us would say, bring a Quran other than this, or change it. Say, I cannot change it on my own initiative. I simply follow what is revealed to me. I fear if I disobey my Lord, the retribution of a terrible day. Who is more wicked than one who invents lies about God or rejects his revelations? When we go to Hadith, we commit both things. We reject God's revelations that state that Quran is complete and perfect, as we will see, and we follow what is the invention of lies, and there is the and rejecting his revelations. Inventing lies and rejecting his revelations. The two things. I'm trying to rush, but I'm slowing myself down. I better make haste slowly. Okay, one God, one source. Our Almighty Creator commands that Quran, specifically Quran, shall be the only source of religious teachings. Furthermore, we are told that the acceptance of any other sources for religious guidance equals the setting up of other gods beside God. This is verse 19 of Surah 6. And it says, say, O Muhammad, whose testimony is greater? God is the witness between me and you that this Quran, by name, was given to me to preach it to you and to whomever it reaches. However, you certainly bear witness that you set up other gods beside God by upholding, this is parenthesis, by upholding other sources beside Quran. It's obvious from the flow of the words. Say, I will never do what you are doing. I disown your idol worship. So this verse is very clear, and we're going to see more. Verse one God, one source. In the strictest possible language, we are commanded to uphold Quran, the whole Quran, and nothing but Quran. I should qualify this by saying that the Quran implies also referring to the previous scriptures. In other words, scripture. Repeatedly, we are commanded to uphold the Quran as the only source of religious guidance. Again and again, we are reminded that the following of any other source besides Quran equals the setting up of other gods besides God. This verse in 1739 says, this is, now after a long list of commandments in Surah 17, this verse comes and says, this is some of the wisdom revealed to you in this Quran, and you shall not set up any other God beside God, by following any other source besides this source. Quran, an extraordinary book. Despite the clear commandments, why do the followers of Hadith and Sunnah fail to uphold Quran alone? The answer is provided in the same surah following the commandment shown on page 8, previous page. Verses 45 and 46 of Surah 17 inform us that those who refuse to believe God and heed His commandment to uphold Quran alone are deliberately isolated from Quran. And this verse speaks of the Quran alone. When you preach your Lord in the Quran alone, they run away in aversion. They just shut up. And you probably experienced that before. Sometimes people walk into this mosque by mistake. You know, they see the word mosque. And they come in here, and as soon as I mention to them the Quran alone, they literally run. Just like the verse says. They can't stand to talk about the Quran alone. But this verse says here, says, when you read Quran, we place an invisible barrier between you and those who do not believe. And we put shields on their hearts to prevent them from understanding Quran and deafness in their ears. And when you mention your Lord alone, now alone here follows the Quran. When you mention Lord alone in the Quran alone, the word alone came after Quran. The Quran wahdahu. Quran alone. Do you believe God or not? In this verse, this is verse 38 of Surah 6, that says, we didn't leave anything out of this book. And in this verse 114 of Surah 6 says, God revealed the book to you fully detailed. I got a letter from Egypt to my hadithist who was asking me if the Quran is, and he used this word. Said, if the Quran is fully detailed as you say, where do we find the prayers? We're going to deal with this question later on. So I returned the letter to him, and I told him to refer to this verse. Because he used the very word that God uses in the Quran, mufassala, meaning fully detailed. This verse says, shall I seek other than God as a source of wisdom when He revealed to you this book fully detailed? Now, the people at the time of the Prophet, for example, I'll give you a question and have you imagine this. What did they think about the sun, for example? Was the new sun coming out every morning? I mean, they didn't know about the earth and the sun and the moon, the information that we know today. How much knowledge did they have, including the Prophet himself? What do you think they thought in their mind about every morning the sun comes from the east and goes in the west? Now, where is it coming from? What is it a new sun every morning, or what's going on here? Now, God created the sun and the moon and the earth and the solar system. Did you look at the moon last night? You see the two eyes, the nose, and the mouth? Did you see it? Now, that's God's sense of humor. And it provided a lot of poetry for the Arabs across many centuries. Now, people can think of God as running the world like. Now, I want you to think of God when He was designing the moon. Now, think, just to bring it to our mind, think of a chairman of the board sitting at a desk, and this chairman of the board is designing the moon. The chairman of the board says, let us give the people of Earth a satellite, a moon that will light their night certain times and help them calculate the months. Because you can calculate exactly the day of the month by looking at the moon, the lunar year. Or let's put two eyes and a nose and a mouth in this thing. But the physics of this matter, the moon has to turn around. The moon rotates around itself, right? But now how do we make it so the people of the earth will always see one side of the moon, that is the face, with the two eyes, the nose, and the mouth? So let us make the rotation of the moon exactly the same speed as the rotation around the earth. And I gave that demonstration to most of you as to why we see one side of the moon. I mean, this makes us think of the greatness of God and how He designed the creation of the heavens and the earth, and how much wisdom did the people of that time, of the time of Prophet Muhammad, how much wisdom did they have? So we seek that wisdom. Now, I see some of you need a demonstration. Let's make that demonstration again for those of you who didn't see it. It's 20 or 21. Let's say this is the same side of the moon that you see all the time. We only see one side of the moon, even though it rotates around itself. This is the earth right here, and this is the moon. Now, this thing is going to go around itself exactly one time. But at the same time, it's going to go around the earth, all right? However, because this rotation around itself is exactly to the second equal to the rotation around the earth, the people of the earth will always see one side. So watch this. Here's the moon going around the earth. It's a satellite. Now, it is going around itself now and going around the earth at the same time. You see that? So when I did this, here I am in the same place, and the people of earth see only one side, the two eyes, the nose, and the mouth. At the same time, the moon went around itself one time. Did you see this? Everybody see it? See, right now I was facing this way, and when I was over there by Baruni, it was facing that way. And when I went by Mariam, it was facing this way. When I came to Dr. Mahmoud, it was facing this way. Then it was facing this way. So it made a complete circle around itself. We just have to think of this very minute component in the universe, how God designed the moon for us. And now putting two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, and the very enigmatic expression on the moon. You can see the moon, and if you want to see it sad, you'll see it sad. If you want to see it smiling, you'll see it smiling. It has a neutral expression. So whatever mood you have, the moon will help you. And this is God's design. So this verse here is saying, shall I seek other than God for wisdom? When He revealed to you this book fully detailed, so all the wisdom we need is in the Quran. And it will be just stupid to go for wisdom, especially to people in the old times. I mean, think of your own grandfather. I'm not insulting you. Remember how simple he was? And that's our own grandfather. How much knowledge did he have? Did he have as much as you? Would you go to him for wisdom? Your own grandfather. Each one of you had a grandfather. So let alone going back 1400 years, seeking other than God for wisdom. This is why God didn't invent all these advances in technology and computers and airplanes and things until the final scripture came. So we cannot seek any wisdom from those people who didn't know much. Just what did they think of the sun coming out every morning? Can you imagine all the superstitions and all the stories, the speculations? They had no schools. Shall I seek other than God for wisdom? When He revealed to you this book fully detailed. And this verse says, the word of your Lord is complete in truth and justice. The word in Arabic is tammat. I put a star under it. Doesn't mean anything else. Cannot be interpreted. Can only be translated. Meaning complete. The word of your Lord is complete in truth and justice. So the question here is, do you believe God or not? It's as simple as that. And God says, if you decide you don't want to believe me, I'm going to block you out. That's what the Quran says. We've seen it in the last page, I think. Yeah. When I put an invisible barrier. There's no wall. You don't see it. It's invisible. When the people who decide they don't want to believe God, that's not enough. God says, I'm going to put shields on their hearts. And in case you miss the meaning of the shields, it says to prevent them from understanding the Quran. And deafness in their ears. I mean, total block out. So the question is, do you believe God or not? This is what you tell them. And not believing God is disastrous, as we would say. The consequence of not believing God, there. Those who refuse to believe my revelations and are too arrogant to accept them, the gates of heaven will never open for them, nor will they ever enter paradise until the camel goes through the needle's eye. Now, what was the biggest needle you've ever seen? I guess Diana can tell us about that. She's got lots of needles in her shop. The biggest needle not past a ladybug. It's not ladybug. Let alone a camel. So God is saying it's a physical impossibility for people. It's a physical impossibility for people who refuse to believe God's revelations that they'll enter heaven, or the gates of the sky will open for them. There are more consequences than that. Important criterion of divine revelation. Some people will tell you Hadith is also divine revelation, like the Quran. You probably heard it before. But God gave us a criterion in Surah 15, verse 9. It says, my message, my final message, will be perfectly preserved. And by their own admission, the vast majority of Hadith and Sunnah are false, are fabrications. They'll admit that, especially if it doesn't agree with them. Hadith and Sunnah are 100% conjecture. And these verses say, shall I seek other than God for source of wisdom when He revealed to you this book fully detailed? Even the recipients of previous scriptures recognize it as coming from your Lord. The word of your Lord is complete in truth and justice. And then it says at the end, if you obey the majority, they will take you away from the path of God because they follow conjecture. Put a star under it. By their own admission, Hadith and Sunnah are conjecture. They think the Prophet said that. And we say, even if the Prophet said that, we follow only the wisdom of God. Obeying the messenger's condition. And this is in the Quran. This verse here says, O Prophet, if the believing women come to you and pledge that they will not idolize anything beside God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor produce any falsehood, nor disobey you when you are right. Now this is condition. Like I've seen like a fi ma'ruf. And it's a negative of disobey. which means they should disobey when you are not right. So the Quran is very clear that obeying the Prophet or the Messenger is in what he uttered as Quran, nothing else. Obeying the Messenger is conditional or conditioned. I like this word, but I looked it up in the dictionary and it said condition equals conditional. So I left it there. This verse says anything good that happens to you, Muhammad, is from God. And anything bad that happens to you is from you. So the personal opinion of the Prophet may be bad and may cause bad things to happen. On the other hand, Muhammad the Messenger utters only the Quran. Here is a good example where the Prophet is, we are told that the Prophet feared the people instead of fearing God. And certainly God doesn't hate the Prophet. Why is he scandalizing him all over the world through the Quran? Why? God is not scandalizing the Prophet. He is telling us that he has his actions and his words, and these are his opinion. And he can be right or wrong. And he is right only if he agrees with the Quran. Therefore, you people take from him only the Quran. Otherwise, what's the purpose of a verse like this? Here's a famous example. Obeying the messenger's condition. Now, this example is where the Prophet neglected the poor man, the poor blind person, and gave his attention to the rich man. Is this something we're supposed to do? This is what Sunnah means. I mean, it's not anything that the Prophet would want us to do. One complete surah illustrates the fact that we are to obey Muhammad only in his Quranic utterances and not in his personal utterances or personal behavior. This rules out the so-called Hadith or Sunnah as a legitimate source of religious guidance. Why is the whole surah, the whole surah is entitled, He Frowned. The whole surah telling us that he made a mistake. Why? He's telling us don't follow his personal actions. And at the end it says, indeed, this is a reminder for those who choose to remember. A reminder of what? That his personal actions and words may be right, may be wrong. The idolization of Muhammad. Well, I think we're running out of time, but this verse says that Muhammad is a human being like you, and at the end of the verse says, do not fall in idol worship. This is another verse that says Muhammad is a human being like you, and at the end of the verse says, do not fall in idol worship. Is this coincidence? Both verses end up with saying, do not fall in idol worship. Muhammad is a human being like you, do not fall in idol worship. Both of them. The abuse of Quran. This verse says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. God and his angels encourage the Prophet. O you who believe, you too shall encourage him and support him completely. This needs a lot of explanation, which I will do later. But they use this to praise the glory of the Prophet day and night. And they forget that the word Prophet, the word Nabi in the Quran always refer to the Prophet during his lifetime, when he was alive, not after his death. And then we're told 13 verses before this that God and his angels make salat on the believers, every single one, you and me, if we are believers. God and his angels will make salat on us to take us out of darkness into the light. So I'll get to this later, but I have to quit. Also this verse, just don't know where to quit, but I better quit here. And maybe if we have enough votes tonight, maybe we can finish this whole thing and explain it in detail. And then eventually, inshallah, you're going to have it written down, printed. So let us turn to God and ask him to encourage us to stick to his word alone and to be satisfied with the wisdom of God alone. Tubu ila Allah. Repent. Alhamdulillah wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Hopefully this book will give you the evidence that you can show anybody supporting the idea that Islam exactly.
It's a very interesting thing. There was a trial in Syria. A certain Cohen, he was caught spying.
Is 1970?
I don't remember. Before this Assad.
Oh, before.
Yeah. And the judge was telling Cohen whether he believes in the Bible and so on. He said, somewhat, he said. Why don't you beat him up for you? Then he asked him, do you believe in the Talmud? He said, somewhat. And then the judge told him, don't you know if the Talmud is against the Bible?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
This Talmud is made up of Hadith.
Yeah. But the mind of the judge, he's a little afraid. He's trying to say the Bible does not talk about death. It's not Zionist. It's the Talmud that's Zionist. So he has a motive.
Yeah, in the Middle East, we grow up knowing that Talmud is the basis of all evil as far as the Jewish religion is concerned.
And this is what the judge says, that
They're not aware that they have the same Talmud.
the Talmud has made things harder for the Jews. What happened? This girl will have a stomach ache if she exposes her stomach. That's what we believe.
Well, I'm gonna stop. Now, some people
It's pretty
say
high.
finish this book rather than the Quranic study. Is that okay by you?
Namo?
Is it alright by you to just see the slide?
Amo, go on. You don't have to ask me on this thing. Terrible. We just do what we, one way or the other one we learn. You know, this Jamila should cover her stomach because that's how she, that's the, I don't know how to it is. She gets sick with the
Yeah,
stomach.
it's really warm in here though. Maybe that's why she's
Amazing. But it was cool and it came. Maybe the heater was not on.
It's warm in here because you're wearing this. Maybe that's, maybe I should
Or do it like Jamila. Do it like Jamila.
Show my belly button.
Jamila? Jamila?
Maybe you think
You're not going to cry anymore? You're not going to cry if I carry you?
don't worry. What happened?
As you noticed in the Jummah and the khutbah today, I was trying to rush through these slides, but we're not doing them justice. So
Yeah, I have to go slower.
we'll just go slow and look at them carefully and also ask questions, because in the khutbah there isn't much chance for asking questions and ask for clarification. So we'll just go study this slide very carefully. So situate yourself where you can see the screen. Okay, I'm gonna sit right here. You know about this clay. Okay, these are the ones that we saw so many times. Now, when people go to the Christians and say Christ is not the Son of God, is the messenger of God, they will accuse you of hating Jesus when they're actually telling the truth. And the same is true with the Muslims. To go and say you follow only the Quran, they may accuse you of hating Muhammad, which is not true. When they say Jesus is the messenger of God, you're actually a friend of Jesus, and you're going to be with him in heaven. And the person who accuses you of hating Jesus, because he thinks that Jesus is Son of God or Trinity or whatever, that person, Jesus will disown that person on the day of judgment. And that person will never be with Jesus in heaven. So don't let them tell you that you don't like Muhammad or you're against Muhammad because you're against Hadith. What happened is they fell in a trap where Satan told them Muhammad said this and that when he didn't. And the Quran says that the Hadith and Sunnah are fabrications by enemies of the Prophet. So that's why I was starting the first page by saying there's no salvation without obeying the messenger, because the messenger utters Quran. And you see these biblical instructions, when delivering God's messages, messengers do not speak on their own. Here is Moses in Deuteronomy saying, a prophet like me will the Lord your God raise up for you from among your own kinsmen. To him you shall listen. Now he's referring to Muhammad very clearly because it says, from among your own kinsmen. Now, some people may think that he's referring to Jesus. But Jesus came from among them, not from among their kinsmen. So coming from among their kinsmen, Muhammad came from Ishmael. But Jesus came from them, from the line of David. The next statement in Deuteronomy, God says, I will raise up for them a prophet like you, Moses, from among their kinsmen, and will put my words into his mouth. He shall tell them all that I command him. If any man will not listen to my words, which he speaks in my name, I myself will make him answer for it. So this is a very clear commandment to obey the messenger, even right before he was born. The Quran said obeying the messenger is obeying God. So obviously, the messenger is not God, because he uttered the words of God. And in the Gospel of John, we see Jesus saying, do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? Now this statement is similar to obeying the messenger is obeying God, which we find in the Quran. In other words, if you obey me, you're obeying God. This is what Jesus said. When you obey me, you obey God. But it doesn't mean that he is God. Of course, they abuse that statement. But the Father abiding in me does his words. So God puts his words through the mouth of the messenger. And this is why it is absolutely required that you obey them. In John 16:13, when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all the truth. For he will not speak on his own initiative, but whatever he hears, he will speak, and he will disclose to you what is to come. And then we have verses saying that Muhammad does not speak. Muhammad represented 100% by Quran alone. We sent down to you this book, truthfully, confirming all previous scriptures and superseding them. You shall judge among them according to what is sent down from God, which is defined as this book. And do not follow their wishes if they deviate from the truth. You shall judge among them, this is repetition now. You shall judge among them according to what is sent down from God, which is this book. Do not follow their wishes, and beware lest they divert you from that which is sent down to you from God, which is defined at the beginning as this book. Would they seek the laws of ignorance? Who is better than God as a lawmaker for those who sincerely believe? Now today I was trying to just bring into focus awareness of God and how he designed the moon and the earth And how much did the human beings contribute to this? How much did Jesus contribute to the creation of the moon, or determining the speed of rotation of the earth? How much did Mary contribute to the creation of the stars? There's nothing. And it's just very simplistic and naive and downright stupid to go to humans for wisdom. The problem with most people is that the lack of awareness of God. They're walking around, driving around the streets, and they think of God as something abstract, that but God runs the world like the chairman of the board. This person is fired, this person is hired, move this person here, put that person there. Nothing happens without God's permission and control. So you could see, I used the moon as an example. Did you see the moon tonight? See the two eyes, the mouth, and the nose? You see the face? Am I the only one who sees this? Or does everybody? I see a very clear face. Yeah, so, I mean, you have to know that this is a deliberate design by God. The reason we see the same side of the moon is that the rotation of the moon is very slow. The moon takes 28 and a half days to go around itself. 28 and a half, which is the length of time it goes from new moon to new moon. And it is going very slowly around itself, just going around it, like I showed you this afternoon. And the idea is to bring into focus awareness that God runs the world, that designs everything on purpose, everything by exact measure. The number of drops coming out in the rain is determined by God. The number of drops, even less than that. In Surah 10, God says, not an atom in the heavens or the earth is out of my control, it's absent from me. Muhammad forbidden from uttering any religious instructions other than Quran. And this is the verse where it says that the Quran is the utterance of an honorable messenger. It is not the utterance of a poet or a soothsayer. It's a revelation from the Lord of the universe. And then it says, had he uttered any other religious utterances, we would have punished him severely. And none can protect Muhammad from God's punishment. This is in that verse. Therefore, the Prophet did not utter any religious instructions besides Quran. And this verse, Muhammad ordered never to deviate from Quran. Deviation meant severe punishment. Surah 17. I'll go a little faster in this because we've seen it before. This is the verse that speaks specifically about Quran, where they asked Muhammad to change the Quran or bring something else. And his order there to say, tell them I can't do that. I have to deliver only the Quran. And the rest of the verse talks about fabrication of lies and talks about intercession, by the way. You see the last part down there? The guilty never succeed. Yet they idolize beside God those who possess no power to harm them or benefit them, and say, these are our intercessors with God. Such is idol worship. And the myth of Muhammad the intercessor is quite prevalent in the Muslim world. One God, one source. This is the verse in Surah 6, verse 19. See the number 619. It says that Muhammad brought the Quran and nothing else. And that if you go to other than Quran, then you are setting up another God besides God. So in your religious instructions, you stick only to Quran. If you go to any other source, anybody, then you fail in idol worship. Then you're in deep trouble. But if you stick to Quran, you're a very happy person. And you guarantee success and security and contentment, happiness and health and wealth and everything. If you stick to Quran alone. So God values that. This is another verse of Surah 17. 1739. That says you don't set up any other God besides God by going to any other source besides Quran. Quran is not a usual book. It's not like books of mathematics or physics or chemistry. Not everybody can read the Quran. Not if they are professors of Arabic linguistics, they will not understand the word unless they're sincere believers. At the same time, we're told that God will put the Quran in the believer's heart, regardless of their language. So don't let anybody shake you up that you don't know Arabic or this or that. Doesn't make any difference. When you are sincere, God puts the Quran in your heart. And I say this from experience. I met so many people, sincere believers, who don't know one letter of Arabic, but the whole Quran is in their heart. And they quote the Quran. You can keep that money from it, too, unless you want somebody to speak. Do you believe God or not? In this page, I have 3 verses saying, the first one says, we didn't leave anything out of this book. The second one says, shall I seek other than God for wisdom when you sent down to you this book, fully detailed? And the last verse says, the word of your Lord is complete. When you tell them, is the Quran complete or not? They say, yes, the Quran is complete, but there's always but, if, or and. And I always tell them, I want you to answer me without if, and, or but. The consequences of not believing God are terrible. Those who do not believe our revelations and are too arrogant to heed them, the gates of the sky never open for them, nor will they ever enter paradise until the camel passes through the needle's eye. We thus require to be. Thus, it is a physical impossibility for those who refuse to believe God to enter paradise. The Quran is a great blessing or a terrible curse if they don't believe it and follow it. But the blessing is just unimaginable. Important criterion of divine revelation. If they tell you Hadith is a divine revelation, you tell them they don't know what they're talking about. Because the criterion is complete preservation. The blasphemy is evident when they claim that Hadith and Sunnah are divine revelation. Do they not realize that God Almighty is capable of preserving His revelation? It's a blasphemy to say that Hadith and Sunnah are divine revelation. So they're accusing God of being unable to protect. Okay. And we're familiar with the big verses in the middle, but the one at the bottom says they insist upon following conjecture when the guidance is given to them herein from the Lord. You remember the definition of Quran at the beginning of Surah number 2 is defined as Huda, guidance. And this is exactly the word used here. We have physical proof that Quran is from God, but they don't have any shred of evidence that the Hadith was even uttered by Muhammad. Obeying the messenger's condition, this is the one where he's told that they do not disobey you when you are right. This is the verse that says, if anything good happens to you, it is from God. And if anything bad happens to you, oh Muhammad, this is specifically to Muhammad. If anything bad happens to you, it is from you. Oh, good. So
yeah, because the trauma.
Yeah, so I don't know how much of it you read. So the personal opinion of Muhammad may be bad and may cause bad things to happen. On the other hand, Muhammad, the messenger, utters the word of God, that is the Quran, and must be obeyed absolutely. For whoever obeys the messenger is obeying God, and we are to obey the commandments of God, not the commandments of men. This is the verse where Muhammad's adopted son divorced his wife, and Muhammad was ordered to marry the divorced wife of his adopted son in order to establish a precedent. It is perfectly right for a man to marry the divorced wife of his adopted son, not his genetic son. But the Prophet Muhammad didn't want to do it because it was contrary to the traditions of Arabia at the time. He was afraid of the people instead of fearing God. And this is the famous surah entitled Be Proud. I don't think God will want us to neglect the poor person because he's poor, or give our attention to the rich person because he's rich. That is not a behavior to be imitated. And I don't think the Prophet will want us to do that either. So this is Quranic proof that we are not to follow the Sunnah. Sunnah means imitation of the Prophet. This surah simply rules out the business of Hadith and Sunnah as sources of religious instruction. Idolization of Muhammad. This is a verse where Muhammad is described as a human being like you. And like you is repeated in the other verse. Like you, a human being like you. You can be right and you can be wrong. Muhammad can be right, he can be wrong. You are not really a complete, devoted believer unless you realize that you can be equal to or better than Muhammad, or Jesus, or Moses, or anybody. They're all human beings like you. And you are capable of being like them or better than them. Now, a statement like this will make their hair stand up. This is how it's idol worship. You just don't think they can be equal to or better than Muhammad or Moses or Jesus. But any human being can be equal to them or better than them. Surah 4, there's a verse in Surah 4 that says, if you simply follow what God says, you're going to be with all the prophets. Means equal to them. This is the other verse that says Muhammad is a human being like you. And both verses end by saying, do not follow. Yeah, it says,
Yes,
tomorrow, inshallah, I'll give you a copy of the book. The being topic today.
yeah.
Well, just copies.
But then you mean zo?
Yeah. Okay, abuse of Quran. This verse says God and His angels make salat on the Prophet. Now I put the translation right there. Encourage the Prophet. All you who believe, you too shall encourage him and support him completely. This is about the most abused verse in Quran because they have at least 100 hadiths that say if you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad 1,000 times a day for I don't know how long, you're guaranteed heaven. You'll never go to hell. So you can do anything you want after that. You can quit your prayer and you don't have to fast or nothing.
Did you do it for often? Because you don't have time for it.
Yeah, really. And they do it. People do it. I mean, who doesn't want to guarantee him? Now, at the bottom of the page is the verse that says that God and His angels do exactly the same thing for every single believer, not just the Prophet. So they take that one out of context. And it is used all over the Muslim world to praise the glory of Muhammad day and night. Literally. Right after the morning prayer and after the night prayer. Every day. They do a few hundred of those. And we keep getting books called Durood Sharif. They'll give you all different forms of salat on the Prophet. And at the end of the book, they say, if you make 100 copies of this book and distribute it to 100 friends, like a chain letter. That's why we keep getting them in the mail. They go straight to the permanent part. This verse here is also abused. And the Prophet, the Messenger of God, is a good example for you. And we say, of course, he's a good example for us. And his example is to follow the Quran. And nothing but Quran. That's his example. Now the same words
Abraham.
are applied to Ibrahim,
How about
word for
Musa?
word.
Not also about Musa. This is
No, but not word for word.
But this is the gift that Moses also used to be the son.
Right. But I picked that verse at the bottom of the page because as far as Ibrahim is concerned, the very same words are used for Ibrahim, but they don't mention Ibrahim. They apply to only to Muhammad. Does God hate Muhammad? Of course not. But when you repeat the same things that God says about Muhammad in Quran, they accuse you of hating Muhammad. So I remember a standoff that I had with a friend of mine in Libya, where I told him, did the Prophet frown and turn away from the poor man and give his attention to the rich man or not? And he wouldn't answer me. They just refused to acknowledge that so. And we stood there for a half hour waiting for him to answer me. Did he frown or not? So when you say the same things that God says about Muhammad, they tell you you hate Muhammad, you're a hater of the Prophet. Muhammad cannot guide anyone. This verse in Surah 28 says, you, Muhammad, cannot guide even the ones you love. God is the one who guides whomever He wills. And this makes sense because God knows the deep convictions of everyone, and He knows who is worthy of guidance and who is not. The true love of Muhammad, the true love of Jesus is to recognize Him as a human being and the messenger of God. The Christians love Jesus so much, yet He will disown them on the day of judgment. The true love of Muhammad is to recognize Him as a human and to follow His teachings. That is, uphold Quran and nothing but Quran. Those who follow Hadith and Sunnah are named as Muhammad's enemies, and Muhammad will disown them on the day of judgment. So the Muslims are not any smarter than the Christians. Why should they be? They're all human beings. This verse refers to the day of judgment. On the day of judgment, the messenger Muhammad will say, my Lord, my people have deserted this Quran. We thus set up against every prophet enemy from among the guilty. Your Lord suffices as a guide and support. Please note the word for word similarity between verse 31 above and verse 112 of Surah 6, where it says, we set up enemies of every prophet to fabricate fancy words to mislead the people. God is the one who created you. God is the one who provides for you. God is the one who terminates your life. God is the one who resurrects you. God is the one who called you to a path. Muhammad does none of these things. That's in Surah 30.
Yeah.
Say, O Muhammad, I do not bring anything new that is different from any other messenger. I have no idea what will happen to me or to you. I simply follow what is revealed to me. I am no more than a manifest warner. The next verse says, say, O Muhammad, I possess no power to benefit or harm even myself, except in accordance with God's will. Nor do I know the future. Had I known the future, I would have increased my wealth, and no harm would have afflicted me. I am no more than a warner, as well as bearer of good news for those who believe. Yet, you're going to see the hadith on the next page. Muhammad does not know the future, yet hundreds of hadiths narrate future events that have nothing to do with Quran and represent personal predictions. One of the most prominent hadiths is shown below. This is the hadith that established Sunnah. It says, hold on to the Sunnah, my Sunnah, and the Sunnah of the guided Khalifas after me. Yeah, that doesn't count me. Yeah, I oppose that, as you can tell. Now, the expression the guided Khalifas was not used until 100 years after the Prophet had died. It doesn't take much intelligence to realize that this hadith is false. And it could not have been said by the Prophet because, first of all, how did he know he would have successors after him? And how did he know that they would be called Khulafa Rashidin, the guided Khalifas?